effectively or in a way that everyone can get your message without thinking any that you have any funny motives. I think it's very important to be able to have such skills because it helps you to form good relationships in the work environment.
Absolutely. Do we have any other opinions as well? Fatima, you have any other inputs for us in terms of how you understand communication?
Okay. So I think communication is very important because it gives a clearer view about what you're trying to pass on, the information you're trying to pass on. So people don't just quote you or try to that's effective communication actually. So when you communicate effectively, it's very important because people would understand you better. Yes.
Definitely. You guys certainly are on point about communication. Communication, especially in career growth, is very important because your career growth relies a lot on the relationships that you build with your manager, your colleagues. It really plays a role in how far you can go in the organization, in how you build networks online. We have platforms like LinkedIn, your Facebook profiles, how you're able to use those platforms and how you respond to emails, how you interact with people, essentially is going to determine how far you're going to go in your career. So good communication skills will enable you to connect better with colleagues, to connect better with your boss, and foster collaborations also with people from different organizations, people who are doing similar things as yourself or in similar fields as yourself. And that's definitely going to grow you in your career trajectory. Good communication also helps you present your work. So in essence, a lot of what people perceive of us to be is how we communicate. People will know you as a kind person because maybe you say kind things. People will see you as a rude person, maybe because you said something rude. So communication is very essential, and it is also important in how we present ourselves. Now, a lot of us have intrinsic value as human beings, but we have also gone to school. We have built our skills in different ways. We have done a lot of maybe online trainings and things like those. But if we're not able to communicate that or to let people know that value, at the end of the day, it cannot get us far. It cannot get us anywhere because we do not know how to appropriately or effectively communicate the value that we hold. Okay, so communication also shows a person's leadership potential. A lot of the times, leaders are chosen because how they speak. I think if we can look back in history, we'll find that a lot of people who have gone for maybe the presidency seat or people who have very high positions in leadership are people who are great communicators, great orators. They say something and people listen. They say something and people are motivated to act. So communication, good communication or effective communication also speaks to your leadership potential. And that can also kind of point to your employer that you can be able to take on, sorry for that you can be able to take on a certain position of leadership because you're able to communicate effectively and you're also able to motivate others to act in a way that will take the organization to the next level. And communication essentially also helps you with networking and career advancement. I think earlier on we talked about being able to make communications and connections on LinkedIn. You can go for a conference, and this is the first impression that people are going to get of you, how you communicate. And essentially, most of the times when we speak about communication, or when we say the word communication, the first thing that might come to mind is how we're speaking or how we're talking. But communication has a lot more to do with how we present ourselves, how we're speaking, the tone we're using, the expressions on our face. So all of that encompasses our communication. And sometimes we only have one chance to sell ourselves to a person, to sell ourselves to somebody who can take us to the next level. And our communication is how we get to that level, or how we make progress to the next level in that sense. And communication also helps us in advocating our ideas. I have seen in a lot of the places that I've worked, and with a number of people that I've worked with, sometimes you can have a really good idea, and somebody else might have a poor idea. But because of how they have communicated their idea is favored more to yours because you're not able to communicate your idea effectively. And sometimes that puts you at a disadvantage. You know, in your head, you rehearsed it in your head that, okay, this is how I'm going to give the idea, and this is the reaction that I'm going to get. And you take your idea to the team, you communicate it or to your boss, and he doesn't quite have the reaction that you're expecting, only because you didn't know how to advocate for that idea so that it could be actualized. Communication also helps us in handling difficult conversations, because let's be real, where there are two human beings or three human beings, there is going to be some sort of conflict. We cannot avoid it. Even in families, with your siblings, there's always conflict. Married people have conflict, even in workplaces, because we are human beings. Sometimes we tend to step on each other, and sometimes when things do not go well, conflict arises. So when you have the skills to communicate effectively, you handle difficult situations more effectively, which also kind of builds or shows your level of leadership in a situation. And how you communicate also is essentially your professional image. It gives a picture of who you are professionally. If you have the emotional intelligence for communicating effectively, and you're able to bring ideas across, you're able to influence the culture in an organization, even without having a leadership position. It really tells people that they can trust you. It tells people that you are reliable. It tells people that they can give you a task and you can get it done. If they give you work, you'll be able to get it done. And that also puts you at an advantage in the workplace. But if you're not able to communicate all of that effectively, then you get left behind, and you see newbies coming into the organization and they're taking over positions that you probably should have taken. But because you're not able to communicate effectively, you get left behind and passed by people who just come new into the organization, which should not be happening. So poor communication also has hidden costs. There was a study that was conducted in the year 2016 for 400 companies. Now, these are companies of about 100 employees, and it was estimated that on average, each company loses $420,000 US per year because of poor communication. So this poor communication is because maybe an employee didn't communicate properly with a customer, or a certain employee did not convey a message effectively to the rest of their colleagues, and they end up doing something different to what they should have done, or because communication was not done properly. So you can see that communication really affects a lot of things, and it has also a monetary cost to it. So when you enhance your communication, or when you build your communication, you also add value to the organization, and you make sure that there are less losses that could be encountered in the organization, which also ultimately results in maybe more bonuses. And at the end of the day, you can also get promoted because you are being a better communicator than your peers. Unfortunately, also poor communication can result in slower career progression and unfulfilled potential. So you might have the potential to do more, to be a leader in an organization. You might have a lot more skills than a person who is leading you, but because you're not able to communicate effectively, you sometimes can have somebody who should not be in a position of leadership leading because they communicate better and you're not able to do the same. So you find that your skills are unfulfilled, your potential is unfulfilled, and you also progress slower, pardon me, in your career because you're unable to communicate that to your colleagues and to your boss as well. It also results in missed opportunities for promotions and growth. I think we've talked about this before. And it can also result in strained professional relationships and lack of trust. If you cannot communicate properly and with emotional intelligence, you can create a lot of conflict because a lot of the work that you will do in any space is going to involve a lot of communication. There's going to be a lot of feedback coming in. If you don't take feedback well, you can it can cause conflict between you and a colleague, even between you and your boss. And if a boss feels like they cannot work with you in the organization because maybe you don't have the right attitude when it comes to your communication, sometimes you can even lose your job because you don't know how to communicate. And if you're having lots of conflicts with your colleagues and you're not able to build bridges, that can also result in you being left behind, and sometimes even being fired because you simply do not fit into the culture of the organization, especially if it's a progressive and healthy working environment. Okay, so some common workplace communication fails that are usually there. We have ambiguity and vague requests. A lot of us do not know how to properly communicate an idea with a colleague, with a boss, with subordinates, even with teammates. And what ends up happening when we do not communicate clearly enough is that people tend to take different actions to the ones that we intended them to take. Or sometimes because what we say is very ambiguous and is very vague, people don't take us seriously. So we end up having people not acting on what we wanted them to act on or collaborating with us to bring an idea to pass because we are just very vague and ambiguous in our communication. And a lot of the times, there's so many assumptions that we have. There's the assumption that what you are communicating, the next person is understanding it the same way that you're communicating it, which is not the case a lot of the times. When we're communicating something, people usually have a predisposition of how they receive messages based on a background information that they have of you or of the situation. And if they don't have enough information about what you want to communicate, sometimes they might get the wrong idea or they might do it differently to how you want it to get done because you made the assumption that they have all the knowledge and you didn't give them all the information that they require. And sometimes also we can be emotional in our responses. Somebody says something or gives us feedback and we take it as if they're attacking us as an individual and not necessarily the issue that is at hand. And because we respond emotionally to feedback, what happens is that we create now those conflicts and all these unnecessary toxic situations because we didn't get the communication or receive the communication in good faith as something that's going to help us grow instead. And sometimes this one, I think a lot of people are guilty of not listening actively. A lot of the times we listen to respond or to reply and not listening to understand what is coming to us and how we're supposed to use that information. A lot of the times, even in personal relationships, in family relationships, so even in romantic relationships, a lot of the times, if something is happening, we listen to respond and not to understand what the other person is saying. So this definitely results in poor communication and poor feedback delivery. Yes, it's very important to give feedback, but how we give feedback will also determine how our feedback is received on the other end. So a lot of the times we're not very empathetic in terms of how we are giving feedback, looking at how the other person will receive that feedback. And we end up giving feedback very poorly, sometimes not at the right time. We give it maybe after a long time has passed and the other person has forgotten about the issue. Or sometimes we give feedback emotionally and the other person will not receive it well. All of this results in losses, and unfortunately it also affects us as individuals, as a professional, in wanting to grow our careers. So what we want to do today is come to a place where we can communicate very effectively, where we can communicate as a leader without necessarily having the leadership position. You don't have to have a leadership position in your organization or in your workplace in order to be a leader. You can be a leader at any particular point. It really just depends on how you communicate as a person. So we're going to discuss this three simple mechanisms that you can use to build your leadership or your communication skills as a leader in your organization and just wherever you are working, to ensure that you're coming up tops, you're getting those promotions, you're hitting those numbers, and you're getting the organization to a place where you're viewed as a leader and you're getting promoted. So Stephen R. Covey said that most people do not listen with the intent to understand, they listen with the intent to reply. I think we touched on this in the previous slide. If you want to communicate like a leader, the first thing that you need to learn how to do is to listen like a leader. So in listening like a leader, you want to ensure that you are fully present in the moment. So you want to remove any distractions. I think now with the growing use and the growing love of social media and our phones, it's very easy to get distracted. I'm somebody who works remotely, so all of my workmates are in different parts of the world. And it's very easy for me, if we're having a Zoom meeting, to just turn off my video and be scrolling on the phone while a communication is being passed. But if I want to be a leader, I want to make sure that I get each and every communication that's coming into the organization, because it might concern me, it might concern my team, and I want to make sure that I get every communication so that if there are other successive communications coming across, I can be able to refer back to the information that I got. So when you listen like a leader, you want to be fully present in the moment, remove each and every distraction. So this is your phones, you can put it on silent to be able to listen to the next person. Even clear your mind, your thoughts on budgets that you have to do, the things that you have to do next. Remove all of that from your mind to ensure that you are listening to the person. So this can be a person who is under you and they report to you. They are just as important. And this is actually where your leadership is going to be very crucial, because their report of you, or even if they're a colleague who are at the same level as you, their reports of you could influence how far you go in the organization, and just the communication that they can give across about you. You never even know, they might be related to somebody who could have the next opportunity for you to get to a higher place in terms of your career growth. So you want to ensure that when you're communicating to each and every person, regardless of whether they are above you, or whether you're at the same level with them, or whether they are working under you, be fully present. And that really shows your leadership skills. So as you are listening as well, you want to ensure that you ask clarifying questions. So once the communication is coming to you, you want to ensure that you fully understand what the person is saying. So in this way, you're removing all the assumptions that you possibly had in the beginning. You want to remove every single assumption. You don't want to assume that what they're saying B and meaning C when they're actually saying it and meaning something else. So remove each and every assumption in your head, ask clarifying questions. Even if you have information about what they want to communicate to you, you want to make sure that you're clarifying that the information that you have and the information that they have about the issue, about the circumstance, is the same. And at the end of the day, you're going to have the right information to act on. But when you don't ask clarifying questions, you put yourself in a position where you're going to act not having all the information at hand, and that could harm the organization, which will ultimately harm you at the end of the day. And it can create a lot of mistakes that you want to avoid as well. Then you also want to reflect back what you heard. So you want to ask questions like, did I hear you correctly? Did you say A, B, C, D, right? And then they're going to tell you, oh no, I meant da, 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 da. So you always want to make sure that you reflect back what you heard. Even if you're talking to your boss, you're talking to your colleague, at each and every level, you want to make sure that you get clear information to remove any kind of assumption as well. Another thing that I think a lot of people like to do is interrupt when communication is coming through. Do not interrupt the person, even when you feel like you've gotten a light bulb moment and you want to interject. I used to be very guilty of interjecting. So many things will come through my mind as a person is saying something to me. And sometimes I feel like I know the next word of what they're going to say, and I want to say it before they say it. Put yourself at ease, relax, breathe. Do not interrupt while the other person is speaking so that they can finish. One, you don't want to miss the next thing that they're going to say because of the assumptions that you have, because they might say something totally different. And also you want to accord them the respect that they deserve. I think there's a saying in life that what you give out is what you get. Interrupting is a very rather rude, even if you don't want to come across as rude, but it ends up coming up as something which is rude, and you want to interrupt, you want to stay away or steer away from appearing as rude and disrespectful to the next person. So when you do not interrupt, it shows that you are very respectful of what you're saying. It makes them feel heard. It makes them feel that you're empathetic with them. And then you can afterwards reply after you've gotten a full understanding of what they wanted to say. Okay, so mechanism number 2, you want to give feedback, feedback that builds. The idea or the mindset that you should have throughout is growth. Growth for you as a person, growth for the people around you. Communication, your communication should be communication that builds, because when you do that with other people, imagine what's going to happen in return. They're going to end up building you as well. Once they get that this is how you communicate, people will usually communicate the same way back to you. So you want to ensure that you're communicating in a way that builds and not that tears down. So you want to be clear and specific in the feedback that you're giving. You don't want to be vague and ambiguous when you're giving feedback. Don't say, for example, somebody didn't conduct themselves well during a meeting. You don't want to, in a way, sugarcoat what they did or be ambiguous and going around circles instead of attacking the idea that, okay, you are very cordial towards them, but you tell them, okay, I noticed that during the meeting, so and so was speaking and you came and you interrupted while they're speaking. Maybe next time, can you just hold off on the idea that you have and then allow them to present? After they've presented, then you can come and present your idea. So at the end of the day, what you have done in that situation is that you have shown them where they were wrong. You did not attack them as a person, but at the same time, you've been very clear and specific in what they have done. So they know at which particular point they did something wrong, and they know what it was that they did wrong. And then after that, they know what they should do next about it. So you also want to make sure that your feedback is balanced. Like I said, you say something good, something positive that they did during the meeting. I liked how you presented this idea. Oh, thank you for the way you did that lesson, or the icebreaker that you gave was a really good one. And then you go and you attack the issue that you want to attack at the end of the day. So you want to make sure that it's balanced so that you're not attacking the individual, but you're attacking that specific behavior that you don't want to see the next time. You also want to ensure that your feedback is timely. So you might not be able to say we are in a meeting. It might not be a very good idea for you to right away, while maybe somebody else is speaking, go, hey, I don't like that you did A, B, C, D. Can you next time do this? But you can wait after the meeting, meet the person and tell them what happened and how they can respond better next time. And you want to make sure that it's directly after the action has taken place so that they don't forget about it and the impact of the communication is not affected. You also want to ensure that your communication or your feedback is behavior focused. As I mentioned earlier, you're not attacking the person, you are attacking that behavior that they did wrongly, and then you want to correct that. So you want to separate the person from the behavior so that they as a person can grow and you can work much better with them in future. So James Hume said in his book that the art of communication is the language of leadership. So communication is the language of leadership. It is what leaders use to become successful. It is what leaders use to bring their ideas to fruition and to motivate others to do what they want them to do. So this is going to be the last mechanism that you want to employ. Receive feedback with confidence. So as you are giving feedback, a lot of the times you will also receive feedback from people because as human beings, we're not perfect. Even if you become a very effective communicator, there are times that you're going to miss it. I'm not saying that don't make mistakes in your communication, because you will. None of us is immune to mistakes, but you want to ensure that you receive feedback with confidence and know that the person is not attacking you as a person, but they want you to grow in a certain area. So you want to adopt a growth mindset. You're always thinking, when people are pointing this out in me, they want me to be better. They don't want me to have the same ideology or stay on the same paradigm, but they want me to grow. So you take every feedback with grace and you grow from there. Okay, so you can also get curious and not defensive. So in the same way as you are giving feedback, you want to ask the person, okay, is this what you meant? Did I hear you correctly? Did you say that I did this and this and this and this, and it affected you in this way? how can I do better next time? And you allow them to point out how they think you can do better next time. And you take it, even if it's not feedback that you feel like is necessarily true, or you feel like maybe they're exaggerating, but you still take it with grace in that moment. You don't go, oh no, I think you're wrong. I didn't do that. Like, you know, you don't bash what they're saying, but you take it with grace, because a lot of the times when people are pointing things to us, they are pointing the mirror to us, you know, so we can see our reflection and how people perceive us. So how people perceive us also has implications on how far we can go in our career, and where we might get the next opportunity. So you want to make sure that you embrace every type of feedback that you get, whether it is coming in good faith or it is not coming in good faith. Make sure that you embrace all feedback. Then at the end, you also want to thank the person who has given you feedback. You know, graciously say, thank you so much for pointing that out. I'm going to take it up and I'm going to do better next time. And then you actually go and do better next time. So you're not stuck in the same place. All right. Frank A. Clerk says that criticism, like rain, should be gentle enough to nourish growth without destroying the roots, right? So feedback should not be meant to destroy a person. Feedback should be meant to help a person grow. So it goes to the roots. A lot of the times, these are things that are character-based. It might be our character is wrong in a certain way, and we might need to reflect on that and correct it so that we are better individuals, we're better colleagues, people love working with us, and do not really regret that they are in the same workplace with us. So you want to ensure that your communication is filled with grace. You have a growth perspective at all times, and yeah, you're not left behind in the organization. Leaders specifically look for how you receive feedback, especially when they give feedback. How do you receive it? And all those things that you are doing, when you especially put into place all these things that I've told you about, leaders in your organization will take notice of this. And when you're also in a company of people who happen to be employers, they take note of all those things about you. And when you're a great communicator, usually you're somebody who's not forgettable. People will remember that, I met this person and this is how they received my feedback, or this is how they communicated their ideas to me. And they might want to reach out to you next time for an opportunity. So you always want to make sure that you're growing your communication, you're patient with other people, you are being gracious with other people, you're showing compassion and empathy to other people as you're communicating with them. You're not attacking other people, but at the same time, you're also confident in yourself to receive feedback graciously. Okay, so right now I think we have 5 minutes to go. So right now I'm just going to take any questions, or if you have any questions for me, please go ahead. Anyone with questions? Okay, anyone with feedback? Okay, so I'm just going to ask you then, Innocent, from what we have discussed today, what is one thing that you're going to go and implement to ensure that your communication is better from today?
Yeah, I think in terms of receiving feedback, yeah, on getting curious and not defensive, I think I'm going to